Welcome, my dear guests, to the captivating expanses of my story. Chapter 8, 2206. Emma Hart stared spellbound at the main screen of the EK Asimov. Her breath caught in her throat as a breathtaking spectacle unfolded before her eyes. The corona of the star Wayaliti C, hitherto hardly worth mentioning, suddenly came to unprecedented life. Massive eruptions hurled seething plasma into space. But instead of simply evaporating, the eruptions of matter formed giant, slowly rotating vortices. Emma rubbed her eyes in disbelief. She had never seen anything like it. "Dr. Novak, look at this!" she shouted to the chief scientist. Her voice trembled with excitement. "Do you have an explanation for this?" Novak rushed over, his eyes widening at the sight of the spinning plasma vortices. "Fascinating," he murmured as he hastily made notes on his data pad. "The magnetic forces must be enormous to create such structures. We're talking about field strengths that exceed anything known." Emma nodded silently, unable to avert her gaze. The swirls danced through space with an almost hypnotic elegance, their shape constantly changing yet strangely stable, as if they possessed a consciousness of their own. This alien intelligence was aware of their observation. "All sensors on maximum," Emma ordered, her voice hoarse with excitement. "I want every last detail of this phenomenon recorded. Spectral analysis, gravity measurements, everything." The crew of the EK Asimov threw themselves into their work with great enthusiasm. Fingers flew over consoles, instruments were recalibrated, and no one wanted to miss even a second of the unique spectacle unfolding before their eyes. Emma felt her mind opening up, old certainties collapsing like houses of cards. All the years of training and preparation at the Imperial University had not prepared her for such a sight. Here, in the depths of space, far from the familiar stars of Kasach, the universe showed itself from a completely new, breathtaking side, a side that not only blew up all their ideas of the limits of what was possible but downright pulverized them. The plasma vortices seemed to dance, circling each other in a cosmic ballet of unimagined complexity. Their movements followed patterns that defied Emma's understanding and all known physical theory. She suspected, no, she knew with every fiber of her being that deep secrets of physics lay hidden in this dance. These secrets could potentially revolutionize her understanding of the cosmos from the ground up. "Prepare a detailed report," Emma instructed her scientists, her voice quivering with excitement. "We absolutely must transmit this to Kasach. This phenomenon could provide insights that change everything. Make sure that every measurement, every observation is precisely documented." While the crew busily collected and analyzed data, adjusted sensors, and made calculations, Emma could not take her eyes off the spectacle. The vortices seemed to be calling to her, wanting to share their secrets with her as if they had their own consciousness. Never before had she felt so close to the universe, so connected to the mysteries of the cosmos. At that moment, she realized that her journey had only just begun. Admiral Paulina Romero stood on the upper deck of Xanadu's starport and watched as the latest addition to the Pegasus flotilla docked. The corvette's sleek silhouette glided majestically through the hangar's force field, its polished surfaces reflecting the bluish light of the docking bays. Paulina felt her chest expand with pride. This new corvette was more than just another ship, it was a symbol of the growing strength and influence of the Empire of Kasach. She surveyed the ship's weapons and defenses with a practiced eye, nodding appreciatively at every detail that met her high standards. "Impressive, isn't it, Admiral?" A voice sounded beside her. Captain Yuki Tanaka, one of her most capable officers, had stepped up to her side. His eyes gleamed with enthusiasm as he scrutinized the new corvette. Paulina nodded curtly. "Indeed it is. With this reinforcement, the Pegasus flotilla will be even more powerful." She let her gaze glide over the streamlined hull of the ship, registering every detail of the weaponry and defense systems. However, as she looked at the new ship, her thoughts involuntarily wandered to the reports on the discoveries in the Wayaliti system. The descriptions of the plasma vortices had astonished even her pragmatic nature. She felt a slight tingle on her neck, a mixture of excitement and apprehension. "Have you read the reports about the anomalies in the Wayaliti system, Captain?" she asked abruptly. Her voice sounded sharper than intended. Yuki nodded, his expression becoming serious. "Yes, Admiral. It sounds fascinating. But also potentially dangerous." He hesitated briefly. The scientists seemed to be at a loss. Paulina smiled thinly. "The greatest discoveries often harbor the greatest risks," And yet, these plasma vortices could revolutionize our understanding of the universe. She unconsciously clenched her fists. We have to be prepared, for anything. She turned away from the window and looked directly at Yuki. We're at a crossroads, Captain. On the one hand, we must build up our military strength to protect the Empire. On the other hand, we must never stop exploring, discovering. Yuki nodded thoughtfully. A difficult balance, Admiral. Indeed, Paulina replied. She clasped her hands behind her back and looked at the new Corvette again. But it's a balance we have to find. For the future of Kasach. There was silence between the two officers for a moment, interrupted only by the muffled hum of the station's power units and the occasional hiss of the docking systems. Finally, Paulina turned to Yuki again. Let the crew of the new Corvette know that I will be inspecting it personally tomorrow. And prepare a detailed report on the Pegasus flotilla. I want to know how we can best utilize our new strength. Yes, Admiral, Yuki replied briskly and saluted before turning to leave. Paulina stood still momentarily, her gaze wandering from the new Corvette to the stars beyond the force field. The discoveries in the Wayaliti system had once again brought home to her the sheer immensity and mysteriousness of the cosmos. And yet, it was her job to provide security and stability amid this uncertainty. She took a deep breath. The challenges that lay ahead of them were enormous. But Paulina Romero was determined to meet them with the same resolve and foresight that had brought her to the helm of the Kasach fleet. Lena Schultz stood on the bridge of the ex-Susquehanna and watched the spectacle before her in fascination. The Q-turn system spread out in all its splendor, a vortex of stardust and asteroids revolving around the orange dwarf star. The crew had been working on constructing the outpost for almost 2 months. The work was challenging, but Lena could feel the excitement pulsing through the ship. Every day brought discoveries and new puzzles to solve. Captain, the latest scans of the asteroid belt are ready, reported Ensign Victor Petrov from his console. His eyes lit up with enthusiasm. Lena turned to him. Show me, Ensign. The main screen showed a detailed map of the asteroid belt. Countless rocks of different sizes floated in space, many rich in valuable minerals. Fascinating, murmured Lena. She stepped closer to the screen and studied the data. This concentration of rare earths could be invaluable to Kasach. Chief Engineer Yuri Volkov joined her, his face a mixture of awe and anticipation. With the right mining methods, we could extract resources here for years, Captain. Lena nodded thoughtfully. The asteroid belt was a potential gold mine for Kasach and a scientific wonderland. Every rock told a story about the system's formation, cosmic collisions, and millions of years of development. How is the outpost construction going? She asked without taking her eyes off the screen. We're on schedule, Yuri replied. The basic structure is already in place. We should be able to operate the first modules in about 3 weeks. Lena smiled with satisfaction. The outpost would serve as a base for further exploration and a symbol of Kasach's growing influence in the region. Captain, Communications Officer Maria Ivanova suddenly spoke up. I'm receiving a strange signal from the inner area of the asteroid belt. Lena's head jerked around. A signal? What kind? Maria frowned as she worked at her console. It's weak and irregular. It's definitely not a natural phenomenon, but it's not a known communication protocol either. A murmur went through the bridge crew. Lena felt her heart beat faster. Could it be? Had they just discovered a trace of intelligent life? Tracking. Can you locate the source of the signal? She asked, trying to keep her excited. Work on it, Captain, Victor replied. His fingers flew over the console. It seems to be coming from one of the larger asteroids. About 30 kilometers across, high metal content. Lena took a deep breath. This could be the breakthrough they had all been waiting for. Or another disappointment. They had to proceed with caution. All right, listen, she said, her voice calm and firm. We're going to send a probe to that asteroid. Full sensors, but no active scans. I don't want us to disturb anything, in case there's actually, well, whatever might be there. The crew immediately set to work, the excitement almost palpable. Lena watched the preparations, her mind a whirl of possibilities and questions. The Q-turn system had captivated her from the very beginning. Now, it seemed ready to reveal another of its secrets. Lena was determined to treat whatever they would find with the caution and respect it deserved. T under control. Emma Hart was standing on the bridge of the EK Asimov when the hollow communication system flickered on. The face of one of her lead quantum physicists on Kasach appeared, his eyes wide with excitement. His skin glistened in the bluish light of the hollow projection, and Emma could see the delicate beads of sweat on his forehead. "Minister Hart, we have a breakthrough," he shouted, his voice trembling with excitement. "The quantum theory. We've crossed boundaries we didn't even know existed." He paused momentarily, gasping for breath as if he was still trying to grasp the meaning of his words. Emma felt her heart beat faster. A wave of excitement flooded through her, but she forced herself to remain calm. "Explain," she demanded, her voice controlled but full of barely suppressed tension. Her fingers clutched the armrests of her command chair. The scientist began to speak, his words almost tumbling over each other. He gesticulated wildly as he described how they had uncovered the secrets of the quantum world, how decades-old mysteries had suddenly been solved. Emma listened spellbound, her brilliant mind processing every detail. Her eyes widened as the full implications of the discovery slowly seeped into her consciousness. "These discoveries," she murmured, her voice barely more than a whisper, "they could change everything." She leaned forward, her whole posture now radiating intense concentration. "Yes, Minister," the physicist confirmed, his voice quivering with suppressed enthusiasm. "The possible applications are almost limitless. We can explore and understand the universe in a completely new way." He paused and took a deep breath. "It's as if we've suddenly learned a new language, the language of the cosmos itself." Emma nodded slowly, her mind already racing through countless possibilities and consequences. Goosebumps spread up her arms, a physical sign of the mental shock she was experiencing. "Connect to Admiral Romero," she ordered. Paulina's face appeared on the screen. "Emma? What is it?" "Paulina, we've made a breakthrough in quantum theory," Emma explained, her voice vibrating with suppressed excitement. "The potential applications are enormous. I need your assessment for the research priorities." Paulina's eyes narrowed, her brow furrowed thoughtfully. "I see. What do you suggest?" Her voice sounded calm, but Emma recognized the underlying tension in it. Emma hesitated briefly, her eyes gliding over the bridge's controls as if looking for inspiration. Then she spoke what was on her mind, precise and decisive. "I think we should concentrate on developing blue laser weapon technology. For the fleets." She paused, watching Paulina's reaction closely. Paulina nodded slowly, her eyes sparkling with suppressed enthusiasm. It was a wise decision. The defense of the Empire must be a top priority. Her hand unconsciously clenched into a fist as if she wanted to seize the future. "Exactly," Emma agreed, her voice gaining intensity. "This technology could take our ships to a new level. The Pegasus flotilla would be invincible." In her mind's eye, she could already see the enhanced ships gliding through space, unstoppable and majestic. "Good," Paulina said, her voice tinged with steely determination. "Put your best people on it. I want regular progress reports." Her eyes bored into Emma's through the screen as if to test their commitment. "Of course," Emma replied, her posture tightening involuntarily. "We'll get started right away." She felt the energy building up inside her, the urge to act, explore, and discover. When the connection was interrupted, Emma leaned back in her chair on the bridge of the EK Asimov. Her gaze wandered to the stars outside, which suddenly seemed full of possibilities. The endless black of space, punctuated by countless points of light, seemed to be calling her, beckoning her to new horizons. Emma felt a smile steal onto her lips, a smile of anticipation, determination, and the knowledge of the challenges ahead. Lena Schultz stood on the observation deck of the newly completed outpost in the Qtern system. Her gaze swept across the endless expanse of space, past the shimmering stars, until it lingered on the asteroid that she and her crew had affectionately christened Siren. The mysterious signal emanating from there had captivated them since their arrival. "When will they finally come?" Lena murmured to herself. Her fingers drummed impatiently on the railing. She longed for one of the research ships to examine the anomaly closely. The ex-Susquehanna was not equipped for such detailed investigations, and suddenly, her communicator beeped, a shrill tone that cut through the silence of the observation deck. "Captain Schultz, you have an incoming hollow link from Sector Governor Gupta," the computer's artificial voice reported, a hint of urgency in its monotone. Lena tensed up, her posture instantly changing from thoughtful relaxation to official attention. "Accept," she ordered curtly, taking a step back to give the projection space. The hologram of Myra Gupta flickered in front of her, blurred at first, then becoming more apparent. The small, plump woman wore a colorful robe that contrasted with the sterile surroundings of the outpost. She smiled warmly, her eyes shining excitedly as if she had just heard some fantastic news. "Captain Schultz. I hope I'm not interrupting your important duties?" she asked, her voice full of genuine concern. Lena shook her head, a slight smile playing around her lips. "Not at all, Governor. How can I help you?" she replied, her voice professional but with a hint of curiosity. Myra clapped her hands, conveying her joy even through the hollow projection. The sound echoed strangely distorted through the room. "Oh, it's not about how you can help me, Captain," she explained with a mischievous smile. "I wanted to personally welcome you and your brave crew to the Kasach sector." Lena raised an eyebrow in surprise, her usually controlled expression showing genuine bewilderment for a moment. That's very kind of you, Governor," she stammered, visibly touched by this unexpected gesture. "Come now," Myra waved it off. "That's only natural. After all, you and your crew have done a great job. Opening up a new system for our empire is no small feat." Lena felt her chest expand with pride. "We were only doing our duty, Governor. But I must admit, the Qtern system has done it to us. It holds so many secrets." Myra's eyes sparkled curiously. "Oh? Tell me more, Captain. What have you discovered?" Lena hesitated briefly, then pointed in the direction of the asteroid. "Well, there's Siren, for example. An asteroid that's emitting a strange signal. We haven't been able to decode it yet, but it's definitely of artificial origin." Myra leaned back in her chair, her brow furrowed thoughtfully. "Fascinating. Have you put in a request for a research vessel yet?" Lena nodded. "Yes, but so far, there has been no response. I can hardly wait for someone to come along and solve this mystery." "I understand your impatience only too well, Captain," Myra said sympathetically. "I will see what I can do to speed up the process. Such a discovery must not be neglected." "That would be wonderful, Governor." "Thank you very much," Lena replied, relief resonating. Myra smiled warmly. "You're welcome, Captain. We're all in the same boat, we're the same spaceship. The Kasach sector is your home now, and I want you to feel welcome here." Lena nodded gratefully. "We do, Governor. We do." The hollow link flickered briefly as Elena Volkov's figure appeared in Kostya's throne room. The projection's bluish light cast dancing shadows on the hall's high walls. Imperatrix Savia Heimer and Myra Gupta stood in front of the projection, their expressions serious and focused. The tension in the room was almost palpable. "Welcome, Administrator Volkov," Savia greeted the head of the colony on Citus Sim. Her voice sounded calm, but there was a flash of concern in her eyes. "What's the situation on the ground?" Elena straightened, her gaze fixed on the Imperatrix. The hologram clearly showed her exhaustion and the dark circles under her eyes. "Your Highness, Governor Gupta, work on the perimeter is progressing. We have developed and secured 80% of the planned area. The work is hard, but our people give it their all." Myra nodded appreciatively, a slight smile playing around her lips. "That's good news. The colonists are doing a great job. What's the timetable for full development?" "According to our calculations, we will be able to complete the work in March next year," Elena replied. She ran her hand over her forehead, wiping away the sweat that had collected there. "The challenges of the terrain are greater than expected. The swamps and constant fog make our work considerably more difficult. But we're making steady progress, meter by meter." Savia frowned, her blue eyes scrutinizing Elena intensely. "And what about the colonists? Are there any problems adapting to the new environment? The conditions on Citus Sim are anything but easy." Elena hesitated briefly, her eyes darting back and forth between Savia and Myra. "Well, there's a development that surprised us. A significant number of the colonists have become infected with the native symbiotes." Myra gasped softly while Savia kept her composure. "Infected?" the Imperatrix asked. "Explain that in more detail, Administrator." The symbionts appear to be a fungus that lives in a mutualistic relationship with the local flora and fauna, Elena explained. Some colonists came into contact with them, and the effects were unexpected. Savia leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with interest. What kind of effects? Elena took a deep breath. The infected colonists report heightened awareness of their surroundings, improved physical performance, and a collective consciousness. Myra glanced at Savia, her eyes reflecting the burgeoning unease. That sounds more than worrying. Do we still have any control over this situation? She whispered, her voice trembling slightly. So far, yes, Elena assured her, her posture taut and professional despite the apparent exhaustion in her eyes. The infected, or the symbiote carriers, show no signs of aggression or mental instability. On the contrary, they adapt remarkably well to the harsh conditions of Sim. Their performance in the swamps exceeds our wildest expectations. Savia nodded slowly, her face an impenetrable mask of concentration. Her fingers drummed softly on the armrest of her throne. How many colonists are affected by this? Symbiosis affected? According to our latest surveys, about 30% of the population, Elena replied, her voice neutral but a hint of fascination resonating. The number is rising steadily. Many colonists recognize the advantages of this connection and voluntarily allowed themselves to be infected with the symbiotes. Voluntarily? Myra gasped, her eyes widening in disbelief. She was visibly struggling for composure. Are you aware of the possible risks? That sounds like madness. Elena nodded firmly. We've carried out extensive tests and studies. So far, we haven't found any negative effects. The symbiosis seems reversible, albeit with some medical and biotechnological effort. Savia exchanged a long, meaningful look with Myra. The tension in the room was almost palpable. Finally, the Imperatrix turned back to Elena, her voice calm but firm. Continue with your investigations, Administrator. I expect weekly, detailed reports on the development of this situation. And Elena? She paused briefly, her eyes boring into the administrators. Keep the matter under the strictest lock and key for now. We must carefully consider the far-reaching implications before letting a single word get out. Understood, Your Highness, Elena confirmed with a firm nod. The hologram flickered as if reflecting the weight of this responsibility. The Imperial Senate of Kost was seething with unrest. The ornate hall, normally a place of considered discussion, vibrated with the excited whispers of those present. Senators in their heavy, jeweled robes crowded around the central holoprojector, their faces illuminated bluish by the pulsing point of light that marked the Scifo system. The air crackled with tension and suppressed nervousness. Ambassador Yuki Tanaka of the Diplomatic Corps strode forward with measured steps, his expression a mask of serious professionalism. His eyes flitted briefly over the assembled dignitaries before focusing on the imposing figure of the Imperatrix. Honorable Senators, Your Highness, he bowed deeply to Imperatrix Savia, who sat as if carved from stone on her raised, inlaid throne. We have received alarming news from the Scifo system. A collective murmur swelled and died down again as it rippled through the ranks of the senators. Some whispered behind their backs. Others stared wide-eyed at the holoprojector. Savia slowly raised her hand, the gems on her rings sparkling in the dim light. Instantly, an almost palpable silence fell over the room. Continue, Ambassador, her voice sounded calm and controlled, but her piercing blue eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly, betraying her inner tension. Yuki nodded curtly, his posture tightening even more. Our susceptible sensors have picked up extremely unusual echoes. The patterns we have received do not correspond to any natural or artificial source known to us. He paused meaningfully, letting his gaze wander over the breathlessly listening crowd. After detailed analysis and consultation with our best experts, we believe this could be a possible first contact scenario. The silence in the hall became palpable. Some senators exchanged nervous glances. What do we know about these strangers? Asked Senator Voss, his voice a mixture of curiosity and concern. Very little so far, Yuki admitted. We've given them the temporary code name Sade. Their technology, their intentions, all that is still in the dark. Imperatrix Savia slowly rose from her throne. All eyes turned to her. This is a historic moment for our empire, her voice echoed through the hall. We must act prudently and strategically. She turned to a woman in the front row. Ambassador Hussein. Hana Hussein, a slender woman with sharp features, stepped forward. Your Highness? I'm instructing you to make contact with the Shade. Put together a team and prepare various scenarios. We must be prepared for everything, from peaceful coexistence to less pleasant possibilities. Hana bowed her head respectfully. It will be my honor, Your Highness. I will begin preparations immediately. Savia nodded appreciatively, her eyes sparkling with determination. The entire Senate will remain fully informed of all developments. I expect your full support and commitment during this crucial phase. The senators murmured their agreement, and a mixture of anxious and excited voices filled the chamber. Some senators exchanged nervous glances, while others vibrated with enthusiasm. Ambassador Tanaka, Savia turned to Yuki again in a penetrating voice. Double our observation posts in the Scophos system immediately. Reinforce the sensor networks and deploy our best analysts. Every tiny detail, every anomaly could be of crucial importance. Of course, Your Highness, Yuki replied with a deep bow. I will take over the coordination and ensure no information is overlooked. Savia stood up, her imposing figure towering over the assembled dignitaries. Her gaze swept over the rows of senators, seeming to address each one directly. We are at a turning point in history. This is a time of great uncertainty, yes, but also a time of unimagined possibilities. Kasach, our beloved empire, may be on the cusp of an entirely new era. It is up to us to take up this challenge. Let us move forward with wisdom, courage, and determination. The future of Kasach is in our hands. With these words, she ended the meeting. The hall filled with excited discussions as the senators streamed out. The streets of Xanadu, the capital of Kasach, shook under the footsteps of angry crowds. Followers of the Helix Church poured out of the temples, their faces contorted with anger and fear. Slogans echoed through the air, a cacophonous echo of their deepest fears. Preserve purity! Shouted a man, his voice husky from hours of shouting. His face was contorted with fear and rage, the veins in his neck standing out. The strangers will corrupt us. Defile our sacred genes. In front of the imposing cathedral of genetic purity stood Nadine Heimer, a tall woman in plain robes. Her ascetic face was a mask of determination and deep concern, her short gray hair tousled by the wind. She raised her hands placatingly, penetrating eyes sweeping over the angry crowd. Brothers and sisters, her voice cut through the noise like a sharp knife, we must remain level-headed. The strangers are a test, yes, but also an opportunity to strengthen our faith. Xerxes himself taught us that true purity lies in overcoming challenges. But her words went largely unheard in the tumult. The crowd surged on, a raging sea of fear and mistrust. Some worshippers paused, wavering uncertainly between their reverence for Nadine and fear of the unknown. Others only screamed louder, their faces red with excitement. In the KNN studios, Almar Kazan was preparing for his most important show of the year. His eyes flitted over the latest news as he reviewed his notes one last time. The red light of the camera flashed, and Almar put on his most professional smile. Good evening, honorable citizens of Kasach. This is Almar Kazan with the latest news and a summary of the most significant events of this turbulent year. He leaned forward slightly, his voice taking on a serious tone. As you all know, our sensors in the Scophos system, one of our neighboring systems, have picked up unusual echoes. Experts suspect that these could be signs of an alien civilization. So far, we know very little about these possible Shade, as they are tentatively called. Their technology, their intentions, all this remains in the dark. Our government has taken immediate action to gather more information and prepare for various scenarios. Almar paused for a moment, letting the information sink in. But let's look back at the other significant events of this year. We remember the successful launch of the EK Asimov, our first colonization ship, which landed safely on Citus Sim. The colonization is progressing, despite some unexpected challenges. His eyes sparkled as he continued, this year's scientific breakthroughs have been truly impressive. From the discovery of alien life on Citus II to the mysterious ruins in the Qtern system, our researchers have continued pushing our knowledge's boundaries. Almar's tone became more serious. But not all the news has been good. The loss of the EK Magellan was a heavy blow to our empire. We remember the brave crew who gave their lives in the service of exploration. He bowed slightly before continuing, Recent events have also led to domestic tensions. The discovery of the possible aliens has sparked religious unrest, especially among the followers of the Helix Church. The government calls for calm and prudence as we learn more about our possible cosmic neighbors. Hey, I would be happy if you could give my video a like, leave a comment and subscribe to my channel to stay up to date.